For over 3 decades, Mr. Duncan, now 64, built not just a fortune, but a fortress. Oil rigs, high-rises, political allies, a reputation as unshakable as concrete. But even concrete cracks, especially when the weakness begins at home. He had always thought time would fix it, that somehow, with enough gifts and luxury, his family would find their rhythm. But as retirement crept just 3 years away, Duncan saw something darker approaching faster. The family he loved, his wife Victoria, 59, graceful, regal, and unshakably loyal. A woman with a heart of gold wrapped in iron. Her gilly always perfect, her voice soft yet firm. For 35 years, she stood as the quiet pillar behind Duncan's roaring success. Then came their children, 5 fruits from one tree, but each shaped by a different storm. Mandy, 29, the first son, sharp suit, sharper tongue. He was born to inherit, but never to listen. Ambitious, loud, and already dreaming of life without his father. Rhodey, 27, the wild card. Built like a model, moved like a rebel. He never liked the rules, and the rules didn't like him either. Clubs, women, schemes, but always smiling. Maureen, 25, calm, calculated, mysterious. She studied law, but spoke like a priestess. Quiet in gatherings, but bold on paper. Her journals held secrets no one in the family had ever read. Susan, 23, charming and unpredictable. Always on her phone, always somewhere glamorous. She believed in quick money, faster fame, and never looked back once the camera flashed. And then Vicky, 19, the baby, innocent eyes and a heart full of poetry. The only one who still saw Daddy and not Duncan the billionaire. She loved without conditions, but the world she was born into knew none. Petty fights, silent dinners, sibling rivalries dressed in designer clothes. And love? Love was slowly becoming extinct in the Duncan mansion. So, Mr. Duncan did something no one could have expected. He disappeared. No warning, no note, no press leak. Just gone, dead to the world, but watching everything. Then, exactly 12 days later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, a black Range Rover pulled up in front of the Duncan estate. The bell rang once. Vicky, the youngest, barefoot, with a poetry book in her hand, opened the door. Standing there was a young woman, sharp in a navy blue suit, her afro tucked neatly behind her ears, a black briefcase in one hand. "Good afternoon," she said. "I'm here on behalf of your father. Please call the family." Confused but strangely calm, Vicky called them all her mother, Victoria, her brothers, Mandy and Rhodey, her sisters, Maureen and Susan. The stranger introduced herself formally, then walked straight to the TV. She pulled out a small USB T-flash, inserted it into the port. The screen flickered, and suddenly, Mr. Duncan appeared. He was seated behind his mahogany desk, his voice low but clear. His eyes looked tired, sad, but firm. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. Gone by choice. Because only death, or something close to it, reveals true colors. I have spent my life building this empire. And now, I need to know who's worthy of carrying it forward." The room fell into stone-cold silence. Not even Vicky could blink. "You are all my children," he continued. "And I love you, but love without truth is a poison. There is someone in that room with you right now who is also my blood." Every head turned to the young woman. "Her name is Becca. She is 24. She is your sister. And she is also the executor of my will." Gasps. Even Victoria, the ever-poised wife, clutched her chest. But no reaction was louder than Susan's. Her voice tore through the room like thunder over dry land. "Sister? Who? Her? From where?" Duncan's voice returned, calm but firm. "I will not explain. Not yet. Becca will stay in this house. She is family. You will treat her as such." The screen went black. For the first time in years, the Duncans were speechless. One man, one message, and everything they thought they knew had just shattered. The sound of the front gate creaking open drew no attention, but footsteps on the marble floor, soft, familiar, echoed with purpose. Nellie, the housemaid, 29, had returned. She hadn't been gone long, just 4 days back to her village to see her sick mother. But it felt like she had returned to a different house, a different family. She dropped her small traveling bag beside the kitchen door and immediately made her way to the living room. Her eyes searched and found what she came for. The new girl, the lawyer, the stranger, the sister. Becca was seated quietly by the window, a book in her lap, but unread. She looked up as a footstep stopped in front of her. Nellie didn't waste a second. She didn't ask questions. She bent gently, wrapped her arms around Becca, and held her tight. Nellie, welcome home. Becca, I'm Nellie. I already know everything. And I want you to know, I'll be here for you. Always. Becca blinked rapidly. A tear escaped without warning. Becca, thank you. You don't know how much that means to me. From the hallway, Susan crossed her arms, disgust clear on her face. Mandy leaned on the banister, eyes narrowing. Maureen, always observant, watched from the stairs with quiet resentment. Rhodey simply exhaled through his nose and walked away. Later that evening, while setting the table for dinner, Nellie placed Becca's seat beside Vicky's and quietly added a cup of freshly made Zobo by her plate. It was an unmistakable gesture of love. Susan couldn't take it anymore. Susan, Nellie, we pay your salary. We, not her, so maybe act like it. Nellie, with all due respect, Susan, I've worked in this house for 7 years. I've watched all of you grow. I know your laughter, your heartbreaks, your fights. This house taught me what family should feel like. And Becca, she is family too, whether you like it or not. Maureen scoffed. Maureen, you're really risking everything for someone you barely know? Nellie, I'm not risking anything. I'm doing what your father would have done. I'm showing her love. If that's a risk, then it's one I'm proud to take. It was Victoria, their mother, who spoke next. Her voice was calm, but firm, grounded like a tree that had seen too many storms. Victoria, Nellie is not wrong. Becca is Duncan's daughter, which makes her our daughter. My daughter. If Duncan could raise all of you with my help, then I can love one more with God's help. And anyone who cannot accept that must question the love they claim they have for this family. No one replied. The silence was long, stubborn, but something had shifted. Becca looked around. The walls that once felt tight and cold were beginning to breathe. Not all of them welcomed her, but one heart had opened its doors wide. And sometimes, that was all it took to change everything. What no one in the Duncan household knew, not even sweet, innocent Vicky, was that Becca was not who they believed she was. She was not their sister, not their blood, not their kin. She was a professional, a well-trained legal mind, hired by none other than the man they all believed was dead, Mr. Duncan himself. The entire video, pre-recorded in a secret studio suite. The revelation of a secret daughter, a performance, a masterstroke in a greater plan. Mr. Duncan had seen the signs, the greed, the divisions, the entitlement, slowly eating through his family like rust beneath fine gold. With retirement just 3 years away and a multi-billion naira legacy to protect, he knew if anything were to happen to him, everything he built would collapse. So he'd disappear by design. And Becca, 24, sharp, emotionally intelligent, and naturally disarming, had stepped into the lion's den. She had one mission, to test the heart of this family. Every night, when the lights in the mansion dimmed and the hallways fell silent, Becca stepped out to the balcony, her phone clutched close, her voice low and calculated. Becca on phone. He's calm today. Rhodey avoided me again, but Maureen is beginning to question everything. Susan's temper is getting worse. But Vicky? She's an angel, sir. Your wife, too. She defends me like she's known me since birth. On the other end of the line, in a discreet safe house in Lagos, Mr. Duncan, now going by the alias Mr. Dapo. Listen carefully. Mr. Duncan, stay close to Nellie. She's always had a soft heart. Let her shield you. Watch Mandy, too. He's too quiet. That boy calculates everything before he speaks. They were working closely with the police, tracking movements, recording conversations, observing behavior. The house was under silent surveillance. Every room, save for the bathrooms, had discreet security devices installed by Mr. Duncan weeks before his death. And the cremation story? Another smokescreen. Becca had told it so convincingly. How Mr. Duncan died in a tragic road accident on his way to a business conference in Port Harcourt. How the car was consumed by fire. How there was nothing left but ashes. How his remains were safely kept in a private facility per his will. No one questioned it. Not even Victoria, who wept bitterly in her bedroom for nights. Not even Vicky, who slept with one of her father's old shirts pressed to her chest. Because grief blinds logic, and trust, once betrayed, doesn't announce itself with trumpets. But Becca knew this test would not be easy. The Duncan children were not fools. Secrets don't stay buried for long. And the deeper she went into this web of deceit, the more she feared what would happen if the truth ever came to light. Still, she remained calm, polished, professional, because Mr. Duncan had told her just one thing before she took the job. If they fail, I walk away from everything. But if they pass, I'll give them an empire bigger than they ever imagined. And with that burden on her shoulders, Becca knew this wasn't just a job anymore. It was a war of love, legacy, and lies. Becca had come to learn one thing quickly about the Duncan household. What was said out loud was only half the truth. The real battles, the dangerous whispers, the darkest feelings, they hid in corners, behind bedroom doors, in silences, in glances. And so, on a cloudy Tuesday afternoon, with tension rising by the day and suspicion growing like mold, Becca made a move. She picked up her phone, stepped out to the garden, and made a call, not to Mr. Duncan this time, but to her trusted crew member from Lagos, a man known simply as Kcee, tech expert, undercover specialist. No questions asked. Becca calmly. Phase 2. Deliver the package. Surveillance must go up today. I need eyes in every room. By 2:07 p.m., the mansion's gate buzzed. A delivery van, tinted windows, nothing suspicious. Just a plain box in hand, and a badge labeled Smart Live Secure Tech, hanging around man's neck. Kcee, disguised flawlessly, with a smile of a delivery boy, but his steps were quick, calculated. And as fate would have it, Susan, the second daughter, 23 and already boiling with silent rage since Becca arrived, was stepping out to go shopping. She paused, frowned, then saw the man handing the package over to Becca by the main door. Their eyes met. Susan sharply. What's that? Becca, smiling softly. Oh, just something I ordered for my room. Air fresheners, aromatherapy stuff. You know, to help me sleep. Susan scoffed, suspicious, but said nothing. She turned and left, heels clicking against the pavement, her bag swinging behind her like a flag of war. Kcee, once inside, wasted no time. The house was already mapped out from previous blueprint data, handed over by Mr. Duncan himself. Each room had its blind spots identified. Cameras the size of shirt buttons. All wireless. All live-stream capable. Susan's room was the first. Becca didn't say it, but Kcee knew Susan was the biggest threat. Her rage wasn't impulsive. It was investigative. Dangerous. Calculated. The kind of fury that could unravel everything if left unchecked. Within 25 minutes, the cameras were planted. One above the chandelier in Susan's room. One behind TV in the boys' shared gaming den. One in the kitchen, angled toward where gossip brewed hottest. And one discreetly hidden in the dining area, where eyes met but words often lied. The central control system, custom software, encrypted feed, and motion alerts, was set up on Becca's personal laptop, safely stored in her drawer, and mirrored to a hidden tablet under her bed pillow. Kcee, removing his fake badge, gave a quick nod. Kcee, softly, you're in full control now. Real-time visuals, cloud backup, no trace. Becca, grateful. You're a lifesaver. This just might save everything. As Kcee slipped out unnoticed, Becca shut her door, pulled the curtains, and turned to her screen. Every room now a window. Every whisper now audible. Every lie now traceable. She leaned back, eyes fixed on Susan's live feed. And for the first time since stepping foot into that house, Becca smiled, not politely, but victoriously. The morning sun rose slowly over the Duncan mansion. It was quiet, serene, too serene. In the kitchen, Nellie, 29, stood by the counter, boiling water and humming a soft Igbo church song under her breath. She was preparing breakfast for the household, just as she always had. No one knew this home better than her. She knew where the spoons danced, where the floor creaked, and who liked their tea with milk or plain. But then came Susan, 23, cold as glass, lips pursed, and mood already lit with fire. Susan commanding, "Nellie, go clean up my room. My friend is coming today, and I want it spotless." Nellie, startled, turning. "Oh, I'm still making the tea for breakfast. Susan, snapping. "Are you deaf? I said go." The scolding stung. Nellie hesitated for a second longer, then quickly wiped her hands, gave a soft sigh, and left the kitchen, heading upstairs with guilt curling in her stomach. She didn't know that Susan wasn't sending her away to clean. Susan was clearing the stage. Moments later, Susan turned on the kitchen fan and reached into her handbag slowly, carefully. From a hidden zip, she retrieved a tiny glass container, cold, pale, and deadly. The very same one she'd hidden in her purse days ago after a suspicious shopping trip. What she didn't know was that Becca had seen it all. Through the surveillance camera hidden above her mirror, Becca had watched the entire move in silence. The smile Susan wore when she tucked the poison in, the phone call she made to an unnamed contact, the eerie words. If she drinks this, she won't see sunset. So Becca had prepared. That morning, as Susan forced on a cheerful face, greeting Becca in the hallway with sugary warmth and fake concern, Becca nodded politely, holding back a knowing smile. Susan grinning. "Let me serve everyone today. You rest. You've had a long week." Becca gently. "Thank you, that's really kind." Moments later, while Becca excused herself to the garden, Susan placed her teacup on the tray, adding 3 drops of the liquid from the deadly vial into it, then gave the cup a gentle stir. She smiled to herself. Then, pretending to forget something, she whispered, "Let me quickly grab my phone upstairs." The second Susan disappeared, Becca dashed into the kitchen. She poured the entire poison tea down the sink, rinsed the cup 3 times, and made herself a fresh, clean brew. She placed it back on the tray with precision, then calmly walked back to the dining room as if nothing had happened. By the time the rest of the family arrived, Rhodey, 27, Mandy, 25, Susan, Victoria, 49, and Vicky, 16, everything looked normal. Susan took charge of the morning prayer, her voice sickeningly sweet, her eyes watching Becca like a hawk waiting for its prey to drop. Susan joyfully, "Let's thank God for life, for family, and new beginnings." Becca, smiling faintly, "Amen." Breakfast began. Becca took 3 slices of bread, tore them slowly, dipped one in her tea. 3 sips. Then she paused. Her fingers trembled. She clutched her stomach, coughed violently, then let out a sharp, agonizing cry. Foam spilled from the side of her lips as she leaned over the table, convulsing softly. Susan jumped up, feigning panic. Susan screaming, "Becca, what's happening? Somebody call the hospital." In her heart, she rejoiced. "Finally," she whispered internally, "the snake is gone." Victoria screamed. Vicky ran. Rhodey froze. Mandy stood, shocked. As the family rushed to help, Becca collapsed in their arms. Breath gone, limbs limp. But just as they were about to lift her body and call emergency, Becca opened her eyes slowly, dramatically, and whispered. Becca weakly, "I'm fine now, just a little dizzy." Confusion shattered the room like thunder. Then came the twist. Susan, pointing furiously. "Nellie, where's Nellie? She made the tea this morning. She poisoned it." Victoria, gasping. "Nellie, is that true?" Nellie shocked, tears forming. "No, God forbid. I didn't. I swear I didn't." Susan, shouting. "Don't lie. You wanted to kill her because you love her too much. Because you want to protect her and she won't let you. You betrayed us." Torn between confusion and fear, Victoria took a long, silent breath. Victoria. Nellie, I don't know what to believe. The verdict came quickly. Nellie was dismissed immediately, fired on the spot. Her hands trembled as she packed her bag, her heart bleeding from betrayal. She looked at Becca one last time, hurt, broken. Becca, whispering to herself, I'm sorry, Nellie. I'll fix this. She watched Nellie disappear through the mansion gate, wiping her eyes with her scarf. Becca sat back in her room later that night, her screen showing Susan dancing alone in her bedroom with wine in her hand, celebrating her false victory. But Becca's eyes didn't blink. She whispered to the camera's lens, Game on, Susan. I'm done playing nice. That night, the Duncan household fell into its usual quiet. But inside Susan's heart, a storm was brewing. The time was 9:03 p.m. A sleek black car pulled up a few meters from the Duncan mansion. Out stepped Susan, her heels tapping the driveway with purpose. Her eyes darted cautiously left and right before she opened the front door, shutting it silently behind her. She walked straight to her room and locked the door with a soft click. Her purse hit the bed. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face stayed cold. She brought it out, the pistol, black, clean, loaded, gleaming under the bedside lamp. Susan held it up and whispered to herself with a smirk, For peace, for the good coming days, no more surprises. She placed the pistol carefully inside the inner corner of her wardrobe, sliding a pair of old jackets over it. But what she didn't know was that she was being watched. Cut to Becca's room. Becca sat in the dark, her face lit only by her laptop screen. The surveillance feed from Camera 9, planted subtly in Susan's bedroom mirror frame, played everything back to her in real time. Her fingers tightened on the mouse, her breathing shallow. She wasted no time. She picked up her second phone and dialed a secure line. Hello? Dad, it's me? It's serious now, she whispered. What happened? Came the calm, slightly aged voice of Mr. Duncan. She has a gun. She bought it today. I saw her hide it in her wardrobe, right side under some jackets. A moment of silence. You sure? He asked. Crystal, I have it on camera. Mr. Duncan exhaled slowly. Good. We're close now. Very close. You know what to do. Yes, Becca said. I'll secure it. The next day, 2:11 p.m. It was a quiet Sunday. The family was scattered around the house. Maureen was out. Vicky was napping. And Susan, dressed in her usual floral caftan, grabbed her car keys. Where are you going? Victoria asked, flipping through a magazine. Church women's meeting, Susan replied flatly, slipping on her shades. Shouldn't be long. She exited the house and drove off. Becca stood by the hallway corner, watching her go. She waited a few minutes, then moved swiftly down the corridor. She opened Susan's door, unlocked as expected. Her eyes scanned the room, her movements brisk and quiet. She approached the wardrobe. Her heart pounded. She opened the door as part of the jackets, and there it was, the pistol. She reached in and retrieved it, wrapping it tightly in a towel she had tucked under her shirt. She closed the wardrobe, fixed everything back, and tiptoed out, returning to her room. She double-locked her door and hid the weapon deep, inside her bookcase drawer behind old law journals. Then she breathed, finally. Later that night, 11:47 p.m., Susan returned, exhausted. Her face looked drained from the outside, but rage still simmered underneath. She tossed her bag aside and collapsed on her bed without even changing. Meanwhile, in her room, Becca picked up her phone and made another important call. Come in 2 days, she whispered. Who's this? Her associate asked. It's Becca Duncan. Tell your team to come to the house. My father's about to make his move. He needs you to see something about his daughter. Which one? Susan, the one who smiles and kills at the same time. Silence. We'll be there, the voice replied. Becca hung up. Her eyes flicked back to the surveillance screen. All was calm for now, but she knew the fire was about to start. A quiet knock on the front gate. Becca peered through the peephole and saw him. The same man who had once come as a delivery guy to plant hidden cameras around the house. She smiled faintly and opened the door. "You came," she said in a low voice. "Of course I did," he whispered, holding a sleek black backpack. "Is he ready?" "Very." They both walked quietly toward the side of the living room, speaking in hushed tones near the open window. But just as they turned toward the corridor, Susan had spotted them. She stormed in like a wounded lioness, eyes wide with rage. "So this is what you do, Becca. You harlot. You now bring men to my father's house like it's your personal lodge." Becca's eyes remained still, calm, composed. "Be careful with your mouth, Susan," she said sharply. "You might regret it today." Susan's chest rose and fell. "You're finished. I will personally wipe you from this house." She turned sharply and bolted up the stairs, her steps echoing through the corridor. Becca whispered to the man beside her, "Stay still. It's time." Upstairs, Susan's room. Susan flung open her wardrobe and yanked out every jacket. "Nothing," she screamed. "Where is it?" She pulled the drawers, checked the bed, threw off the pillows. Nothing. Back in the living room. Susan returned, panting and mad, her eyes bloodshot. Her voice thundered. "Where's my gun? Where is it?" Becca slowly turned around, smirking. She reached under her coat and pulled out the pistol. "Looking for this?" Susan lunged forward like a madwoman, screaming at the top of her voice. "Give it to me. I'll kill you." But before she could touch Becca, the associate swiftly kicked her legs out from under her. She crashed to the floor with a scream. In that moment, the front door flew open. 4 police officers stormed into the house. "Susan Duncan," one of them barked. "You are under arrest for unlawful possession of a firearm, attempted murder, verbal and emotional abuse, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to harm a federal witness." Handcuffs clinked around her wrists as the entire family gathered, Maureen, Vicky, even hesitant Blessing, all watching in shock. Susan kept yelling, "I'm not done with you, Becca. You think you've won? I'll deal with all of you one day." Becca laughed coldly. "Use the door first." The police opened the front door. And there, standing tall in a black native attire, clean-shaven, fresh-faced, smiling, was Mr. Duncan, alive. Susan gasped. Her knees buckled. She nearly collapsed. "Daddy," she whispered, trembling. "No." Mr. Duncan's voice was firm, sharp, disappointed. "Don't daddy me. You made your choice. Now face your consequence." He turned to the officers. "Take her away." "Yes, sir." As Susan was dragged out of the house, screaming, the family stood frozen. Maureen started crying. Blessing sank to her knees. Mr. Duncan walked in and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, my children, for putting you through this pain." They stared at him in disbelief. "I had to be sure. I had to clean this house without lifting a finger. I needed to see who loved me genuinely and who only loved my bank account." He looked at Becca and smiled warmly. You did it." 3 days later, Nellie the maid returned, welcome back with tears in her eyes. The next morning, family sitting room, a gray-haired lawyer with glasses and a briefcase arrived. Mr. Duncan sat the family down. "It's time," he said. The lawyer opened the sealed will and began to read. "This is the final will and testament of Mr. Christopher Duncan. To Maureen Duncan, 25 million Nigerian nairas for her faithfulness and humility. To Blessing Duncan, 10 million Nigerian nairas and a mentorship program to rebuild her lost path. To Victoria Duncan, 15% shares of Duncan Pharmaceuticals and 20 million Nigerian nairas. To Becca Okwara, 50 million Nigerian nairas, a beachfront duplex at Lekki Phase 1, and a private legal scholarship fund in her name, the Becca Trust. To Nellie, 5 million Nigerian nairas and lifetime service allowance. To Susan Duncan, nothing. The room was silent. Maureen wept. Becca stood up slowly. "Thank you, sir," she said, eyes shimmering. "But I didn't do it for the money." Mr. Duncan nodded. "That's why you deserve it." 1 week later, courtroom, Susan Duncan was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment with hard labor. She was taken away in cuffs, eyes hollow and filled with regret. That night, Duncan residence, a long dining table, candlelights, laughter. The whole family sat around a royal feast. Peace, unity, restoration. Becca smiled through all, knowing her work was done. The next morning, front gate, she packed her small bag, hugged everyone tightly. Victoria held her hand. You're not just a friend. You're a sister. Becca smiled. And you'll always be mine. As the gate opened and her car rolled out, the entire Duncan family waved goodbye. Mr. Duncan whispered to his daughters, "Love wins. Always.